I held my breath in then, which was pretty foolish because I thought I was going, ugh! Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be, dear viewer. It's he, thee, and me from New Zealand, Bruce Simpson, Louis from, well, no, I'm not going to say Western Spain, from Portugal. Good evening, chaps. We await to see who else joins us. What a dull week it's been. This was the big week of, or just after the AUVSI show. Everything new and shiny in the world should have been announced, and we should all be impressed at the new systems that are arriving. And I'm not. Anyone want to pick up and run with that?
You should, Gary. You should. Come on. You now have a new Phantom.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't even bother putting that in the news today.
Yeah.
Blah blah. Yeah, blah. Yeah. So what?
Nah, I believe they got. Remember a couple of weeks ago we spoke about those Skydio guys with that fully autonomous drone?
Yes, yes.
I believe that might have done some damages on Shenzhen. So whatever they come up, they'll have to upend that one.
Really? You reckon that they've actually taken notice of that?
Oh, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. If you see all the news and the videos that Skydio did, because what they did on very little hardware, considering what it does, is very market changing. It can be a change on the market. Those Skydio guys did the right thing, and for a first vehicle, okay, the vehicle is not nothing to write home about, a simple 4K camera, but how it does it, and with the hardware they say it has inside, it's quite amazing what they did there. So I believe our Shenzhen guys took notice and sent the 1st and 2nd battalion of developers back to the caves and start doing better than that.
So you reckon they'll try and match that for Christmas, or that's Phantom 5? Is Phantom 5 actually going to come?
I don't know. I really don't know, because it's a different culture, but they're very competitive, as we all know, and they have the resources. And someone coming out of the woodworks with a sizable investment on funding, but doing it only on the virtues of software is something that is very noticeable. I noticed that, and I believe they've done a very interesting and smart thing with that Skydio first drone. I don't know your opinion.
What do you reckon, Bruce? Are we at peak multi-rotor?
Yeah, we have been for some time, I think. It's that Skydio thing. I expect the military are probably in a room somewhere going, ooh, look at this. And you'll see some interesting things happening from the point of view of, we're talking about artificially intelligent, killer drones and things. I think the stuff they've done there is a big step towards autonomous military vehicles. And remember, the military has all the money. They lead the way. Who were the first to build drones? The military with the Predator. And of course, we get tarred with the same brush. So I think there's some real military potential for these things. And that may slow down the non-military growth because, the military people, they don't want, sort of civilian systems being as capable as theirs. So it's going to be a really interesting, as Louis says, very interesting and a really clever move on their part.
Do you reckon that, are we going to look back in 5 or 10 years' time and say, oh, they were super smart. They didn't invest in a huge factory in China or, a huge production run or whatever. They just landed on the market with software that everybody wanted and are probably queuing up to, I'm sure companies are queuing up to buy them out. Do you reckon that's how we'll be looking back at them?
Yeah, I think it's like they missed so many steps. There were no 3D renderings. There were no, virtual reality. There was no press releases. They just did the job, rolled out the product and said, there. I mean, that caught everybody off guard. How can you do that? No.
Yes.
Rendering is so important. And that's the secret, isn't it? They flew under the radar for long enough that there weren't other people trying to do the same thing because no one else had thought of it.
No, and the funniest of all, or not so funny, but very clever move, was the way they did it with very simple and off-the-shelf hardware. So they say they have a NVIDIA TX1 and a bunch of cameras. That's it, and the rest is what it matters, is good software inside. So I believe that our Shenzhen friends took notice of that. And imagine what it is. Okay, they could have come out with a Phantom 5 with a micro four thirds or to sensor on the camera. That's the evolution. But people now on the consumer market want something more interesting. The only thing that unfortunately the Skydio guys did was miss the magical price point. But considering what they have at this moment is a good value for the money. Although 2.5K US dollars is not cheap, but for what it does, it's cheap.
Yeah, I think though that their exit strategy is probably not to sell lots of these products, but to sell the software and take one big lump sum or license fees and disappear. They don't want to be in the business of making drones. They want to be in the business of making money.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll have. I think history will show they've pitched it absolutely perfectly. Minimum amount of hardware into the market to get enough sensible reviews out there, enough people going, gee whiz, catch the eye of Shenzhen, and here's the check. Thank you very much. That's a fair play to them.
I'm not so sure about it. From the interviews I've seen from their CEO, I don't get that feeling because the what he says and how he positions it in himself and his company is not so much as looking for a quick buck and the exit strategy. That's just an impression from what I've seen of his, because that caught my attention, as you can notice, and I went to look for the interviews he gave on several places. They're not here for the quick buck. I might be wrong.
The next one's got to be an inspection drone into your market, really, because that's perfect. If it's going around your facility, not bumping into stuff, bring it on.
Yeah, but not bumping into stuff is the easy part. Yeah, even our pilot does it.
I have trouble.
Come on, Bruce. I can fit you with some cameras and some lidars and put you a 360 lidar, so no, you'll be away from everyone, including your mayor. So a mayor lidar.
I thought Bruce came with the ability to repel people anyway.
Only mayors, only lady mayors.
Poor personal hygiene does it every time. But remember, if you're looking to sell out your exit strategy is to sell your intellectual property or license it, you want to create the illusion that that's not your exit strategy, because it gives you more leverage in negotiation. If the person looking at buying you knows that you want to sell out, you're weak. But if they think you're in it for the long game, they realize they're going to have to pay more money to get the product. So it could just be a strategy. I don't know.
I don't know. I really like their product, and this V2 Phantom 4 announcement from our Shenzhen friends might be the result of that.
I didn't even bother.
They can throw an army of programmers at the same problem and come up with a pretty good solution, I suspect. The trouble with software is anyone can make it, and all it needs is enough people and enough time.
Come on, Bruce. Even yesterday I was referring to a common principle of product management. If you want one child from one woman, usually it takes 9 months. But you don't get one child in 1 month by adding 9 women. So
mythical man month.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a challenge. I can see there was a game show that said something, challenge accepted, and I think our Shenzhen friends said that. Challenge accepted.
Yeah, so we'll add a different camera. We'll change the color of the shell. We'll have some slightly bigger motors, and we'll pretend like Billio, that the new propellers we've brought out are 9,000 times more efficient than the previous propellers. And that's all they're going to be doing, surely, to quads for the next few years until we get some leaps in science.
Sounds like an Apple product.
There you go. I don't know. I think, and also I think, are we not at the cusp of changing from multi-rotors? They'll have their place for close in inspection, but aren't fixed wing going to rule the roost again? Now that BV loss is being spoken about all over the place, they won't help you with your windmills, I know, but they'll do a lot of other stuff.
I don't know. Every kind of vehicle has its place and an appropriate usage for some situations. If you go, for instance, to do a survey of a solar farm, a PV farm, you can use a drone. Yeah, sure, no problem. But you'll have to do, when you have 40, 50, 100 acres of ground to cover, using a drone might not be the smartest move. So then you'll go for an helicopter and or a plane. But the thing is, as we all know, the lowest maintenance and operation hassle comes from a multi-rotor. So unless the plane is as easy to set up and deploy as a multi-rotor, it's a hard sell.
Is that really the answer? Is that where I've been getting it all wrong with them then? They're that much easier to maintain. Do you agree with that proposition, Bruce?
I don't know. It depends very much on the craft. Obviously, a complex fixed wing is going to be more difficult to maintain than a simple multi-rotor, and vice versa. It just depends on the scale of the product and the way it's built and what it does. I think, yeah, I don't think you can generalize too much in that area, but the big thing, of course, that multi-rotors have is they can operate in more confined spaces. They've got more options for takeoff and landing, and there's no easy way to circumvent that in the fixed wing. You can use parachutes and so forth, but multi-rotors will always be the craft of choice for short duration, high agility operations. But then if you're carrying stuff long distance, like this drone delivery, where you might be wanting to deliver drugs way up the coast or something, then fixed wing obviously has massive benefits for that. I don't know. So yeah, it's so early. I mean, there's still a man walking with a red flag in front of these things at the moment. The future is going to be so much different to the present.
Well, what year do you reckon you're at? I reckon we're at about 1935.
I don't know, because we don't have the regulatory framework that they had in 1935 for vehicles. And by then, the regulations were pretty much in place, and people knew what they could do and what they couldn't do. At the moment, it's still a dog's breakfast. Every country is different, and it's still. I think it's more like probably 1920. No,
Okay.
1915. 1915.
Except France for those crazy proposed rules that were announced.
That's the next thing I was going to talk about. Do you see they have tabled that fantastic remote identification thing, which is including the letter U in Morse code from a flashing light. Hey! And people are beginning to panic about that, and they're proposing a thing. Is it up for comments, isn't it, Louis?
I believe so. I had a discussion with one of our French developers at Autopilot about it, because he was saying that Europe will have it, and I said, "Yeah, right. Don't wait for it, because
No.
otherwise, as you know, the drone laws in France are quite strange, even at this moment. So make it stranger. It's okay for the French." So I don't believe that will take off.
Oh, you have to be French to fly a drone commercially in France, I believe, as well. It's not just that.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. That's the information I've got.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. And
isn't that like a trade tariff? Trade.
Well, yes, yeah, it is really. It's really, isn't it? And then, so to recap, it's a Wi-Fi device sending the position of the aircraft and some sort of call sign, and
the position
yeah, departure point, expected landing point, and I think there was something else. And this device, you mustn't. It must be sealed, and you can't change it. So it's not going to be. Well, it could be an open source device, and someone codes them up. But it at the end of the day, is a device that a manufacturer, is going to have to make and send off with a bit of paper. And you're going to have to attach it. Well, my understanding of it, Louis, is you could tell me I'm wrong. And then you're going to have to attach these bits to your aircraft. So it's complete. So need independent power as well. What's your reading of the situation?
I believe someone came up with a list of nice to haves and made it as a proposal, and didn't hear anyone about it. How should we do the how can we see the drone ID? Oh, just flash Morse codes. And that's I don't know.
Ford originally proposed this flashing light thing. I wonder if they've patented it, and the French will have to pay patent rights to Ford for using the flashing lights on the drone to identify it.
You're probably right. You're probably right. If Ford haven't patented it, I bet Amazon have by now. They wouldn't have missed that. But yeah, I quite like the idea. And Rybat, not quite sure, saying Aviation in the comments, nothing more than used car salesmen selling to each other. And the little rant I had on Friday was, it no GA below 2K. Why I'm getting bored of why the industry isn't taking the fight to general aviation. Why do we have to, get them up there? Let's help them. Let's help them be safer. As a community, we should help them be safer.
Interesting observation here. As I think I mentioned previously, I wrote or emailed CAA, a regulator, several weeks ago with a simple question, requesting a response. Didn't get a response. Had to follow up with another email asking, did you even get my email? They told me, we'll get back to you by the end of the week. Another couple of weeks have been and gone, still no reply. So I, from this, can only draw the inference that, well, drones aren't really the problem that some people are claiming them to be. They're not the priority that the media might suggest in terms of maintaining air safety, or somebody would have sat down for 5 minutes and typed a response. So all I can think is that drones really, they're not a big issue. They're not a problem from a regulatory perspective. They're pretty simple. From a safety perspective, they're a tiny dot on the radar. So just go for it. We're not a problem at all. Otherwise, people would have acted in response to my request.
I think I sent it to you, Bruce, but the New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority, a little birdie told me that there was a problem with this windscreen of that Rod Vaughan's aeroplane, and the Civil Aviation Authority in New Zealand have responded, and they've said, because I said last week that they hadn't, and then the next day, boom, in the inbox, they responded. So how do, NZCAA, if you're watching? They said they have no knowledge at that point. The young lady wrote back, so they have no knowledge at that point of any pre-existing defects. I have since gone on to and they've promised me a response. I can't remember what they're called, your Light Aircraft Sport Association, but that's not what it's called. But it's called something like that. And I'm awaiting a response from them to see what they have to say. And the airfield and club that aircraft belonged to have not responded at all. So I await to see what happens. But that whole incident doesn't pass a smell test at all. I did notice on the NZCAA site there was little interim reports, for which there was only one for this year. And now when I go and click on it, maybe it'll be there again today, when I tried earlier, there were no reports at all for 2018 on their website. So yes, that's interesting.
They used to publish quite comprehensive incident reports. They seem to have buried those now. I don't know why. Perhaps it was embarrassing to somebody or whatever, but either there's been no incidents or they just don't publish them anymore.
Yeah, but why should we care, Gary? I believe that the Prime Minister of New Zealand has been complaining that New Zealand does not appear on the world maps. So problems in New Zealand don't affect anyone else in the world because New Zealand is not on the map.
I didn't see that. Why wouldn't New Zealand be on the map?
Because we're so small, and if you put America in the middle, we're right over on the edge, and it's easy just to crop that bit off,
sort of a bit off topic, but you always know where you're traveling in the world because that nation is at the center of the map, isn't it? Or that sort of region. It's always interesting. Anyway, this is very off topic, but I always think that's interesting. And then that helps you realize, oh yeah, I'm not from the only country in the world. But anyway, well, maybe. Yeah, so I'm following with interest in that. So no GA below 2K. Look at all the fatalities that were in America last year. Why are we so afraid of general aviation? They're not earning money. They're just sightseeing and getting in the way of commerce.
Well, I spoke to a pilot on the weekend about that no 2K below, no GA below 2K, and he said, "What about when there's cloud, low cloud?" And he
I thought about that. Yep. No, I thought that. We're going to help them with their safety. We're going to help them with their safety. What we're going to do is we're going to raise the altitude. We're going to say, yeah, no, I tell you what, we're not going to let you fly if there's cloud below 3,000 feet. And it's only helping them out because they'll be a lot safer. There'll be a lot less controlled flight into terrain, seafoot accidents. Last weekend, very sadly, on Saturday, there was a fly-in at Ladysmith, and one of the chaps flying back, we had a tiny cold front come through, a little bit of rain, a little bit of low cloud. Mountains go up to 13,000 feet just behind me here, and he managed to catch one on his way home, and in net result, it wasn't a good thing. Now, if he'd been restricted as to the altitude, that he could have, the cloud base, and it's not like it's pulled up. My ranty horse has pulled up, and I'm climbing aboard. But let's say 50 years ago, it would have been relatively impossible to get a good weather forecast. We don't live in those times anymore. You can get really good weather forecasts. What about helicopters? It's scary up at 2,000. Yes, it is scary up at 2,000. You're exactly right. I know what you mean. And the other things. And I'm only being the devil's advocate, really, because I fly as well. But yeah, we'll just raise the cloud base. They can't fly unless there's a cloud base of at least 3,000 feet. Surely that'll help your friend out, won't it, Bruce?
I guess it could, but I mean, problem is that they would then see that as an unreasonable restriction on their freedoms to use the airspace. Perhaps a drone with a red flag flying ahead of the GA aircraft would be a suitable solution.
Well, maybe, but at the end of the day, we can take any country in the world and we can say drone deaths, 0. And every country in the world has got, even here last weekend, 2 more people just up the road in the mountains. Every country has fatalities from general aviation. Why are they getting the better part of this deal? I'm not saying ban general aviation, but come on, there's loads of non-electronic equipment and ways of doing business that could make it safe for them.
But according to our regulator, the problem is that if you're in a GA aircraft, you are very cognizant of safety and you tend to be very more safety focused because it's your life at risk. If you're flying a drone, you don't give a damn because it's someone else's life at risk. You know, apparently we're all reckless people who don't care about other people.
Yeah, and Tom's saying remote ID's coming. Tom, do you want to join us and tell us what your thoughts on that? I might just send him an email right now because he was at the AEVSI show, the one that I thought was dull as this. There was only one thing I saw at that I thought was interesting. There was a great big Chinese coaxial helicopter. It was huge. That looked like a load of fun. It looked like it was actually bigger than an R-44. So I thought that was very interesting. Let me send an email off to Tom. I wonder what, electronic ID. Now that, again, that's a ridiculous subject because which electronic ID? And why electronic ID, and why can't we just hear it all and get out of the way? Anyone else want to pick my rant up from that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Louis, the thing that I think is most important is that we still don't have this differentiation between drones and models and toys. And I still can't believe that when I'm out there flying under the trees in the local park in direct violation of the mayor's diktat, somehow I should be controlled by the National Airspace Controller when I'm under a tree. How the hell does that work?
Yeah, well, you won't be, and then they won't have any interest in knowing you're there. In fact, they'll really hate you if you ring them all the time and tell them.
I am the noise in signal to noise.
He's certainly not the signal. That's for sure. Yeah, I know it is madness, and there's no doubt with modern electronics and stuff and receivers. Modern RPA in 5 years' time will definitely hear everything, and they'll definitely be able to get out of the way, whatever that standard is. Oh, maybe next week, says Tom. Oh,
Yeah.
Your favorite subject, Laura, Gary. I saw, I think it was Hackerspace or something, Hacker Day. Someone is controlling a drone with a LoRa system, and they've got 2 kilometers of range so far. It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
we should be able to get a lot. Yeah, there's a lot more than that if you did different things. But yeah, okay, Tom. Maybe next week. Cool. You can tell us next week then, when in your opinion, remote ID will be with us. What format then? In the comments, Tom. What format will the remote ID look like? Which team won at AUVSI last week?
I really don't know. What's your take from the AUVSI press releases, Gary? I don't think there was nothing relevant. That's why
I was amazed that they were done with it on the first day. Most of the press releases, and there was nothing that we wouldn't have expected, really. No big news. In fact, since AUVSI, we've had DJI and Microsoft join up, and we've had British Aerospace launching that. I'm going to have to read this. The Prismatic Phaser, which is another acronym. We love acronyms in this, don't we? And I've got to read this. Where is it? It's new solar powered, high altitude, long endurance. That's not what I say. Talk amongst yourself while I try and. Oh, here we are. Persistent high altitude solar aircraft. But I thought that was also interesting that wasn't announced at AUVSI. Because it's allegedly a big deal. But as I've said in my ranty video the other day, at both Paris and Farnborough, on the first day and the first day of press releases, there'll be more business done than in the whole of the AUVSI show. There'll be the first minute. There'll be more money spent. Bewilders me why.
What I think is shows like AUVSI are not so much geared towards practical uses of drones. Some manufacturers go there to do their show and pony show off. They just show off something, and the big developments are being made on market specific fairs. So if you go to for instance the wind turbine business show, you'll see the biggest developments that are being made on there. If you go to powered management, large energy transmission lines show, you'll see what is being done with specific tools. So drones are entering on the professional side, are entering the market as a tool. So the companies that have business around that area go to the and promote their tool on those specific markets, and that leaves us AUVSI shows like for general announcements that don't bring nothing very relevant, and also to some strange Chinese manufacturers that do 4 meters wide hexacopters with 40-inch blades and something like that to them. So it's not so relevant as a market, as a demonstration of. And you can see that, for instance, CES show, where the guys that are rooted and bet their money for general consumer. You go to the NAB show in US, where you always have a strong presence, for instance, from DJI and Unique. Those are vertical markets and people go there and show their tools.
Yeah, you're right. I think there's something a lot of new drone businesses miss, is that they go to the drone trade shows, but they don't go to the specialist work area trade shows. They have we have the mining in Derby here, and I know quite a few companies came down and were showing at that. I was quite surprised at the number of drone manufacturers that were actually at the mining Indaba. That's the very, very specialist about mining, funnily enough.
I think conference organisers are waking up to this, because I get a lot of solicitations now in the mail from forestry conferences and dairy conferences and things to come along and pitch my product to them. Of course, buy a stand and give them money. But yes, I think the rest of the industry is waking up to the need to do that far more quickly than the drone industry has woken up to that need. So they're sort of being dragged by the scruff of the neck into those conferences and told, pitch your wares to these people, which is a good thing, because, as you say, that's the way it should be done.
Yeah, this growing sign of growing up, isn't it? I suppose, an industry, which is really, really cool. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that happen in other technology sectors that you've covered over the years, Bruce.
Not so much. I remember when I was in the early stages of the computer industry, it was all about computer shows. I didn't get solicitations from, other industry groups to come and show my computers to people. So I think it's happened a lot more quickly with drones, and it does show that things are maturing at a much greater pace these days than they were, 30 years ago.
Yeah, everything moves faster now. So that's one of the reasons. As everything moves faster, people tend to specialize in 1-2 areas of the business and how to apply drones to those markets. Go ahead, Gary.
You two just keep chatting. I've got to let this flipping dog out. It's going nuts. Yeah, bloody dog. Come on.
No, and now, by the way, how's your issues with the mayor and the park flying over Tokoroa?
I just basically, now that I've got, look at this, we've got dog tricks going on here. Look, there's a dog throwing a ball and Gary runs away and brings it back.
Dog and pony trick show. It seems like a drone conference.
Is that a real dog or a rendering? I don't know. What's his name? Blockchain.
He has no headphones.
Bloody thing. Right, there we are. Right.
We were discussing about the dog and pony trick show, Gary.
Yes,
got the dog.
Yes, we got the dog. The horse will be in. Yes, my high horse is just over there. Yes, that's right.
We weren't in the least bit derogatory.
No, I'm sure you weren't. I'm sure you had just happened to have an ace time. Right, let's see. Now, hey, there we are, everyone. A winner. Bruce, your thoughts on the use of UUID over SDR for precision 3D navigation over GPS?
Well, there's a lot of TLAs in there, isn't there?
Yes.
My answer would have to be green.
Green. I think, and you've brought me back to my favourite subject, as Bruce says, LoRa. Ryback, you can. LoRa has all sorts of clever protocols for doing that. You just have to pay quite a chunk of money. It's all under license from Semtech, and so it will do it all. And the cleverest thing it does is it works its way through a range of frequencies. So it tries the different frequencies for different bouncing around off stuff, and then it can work out its time of flight even better. And then you can also how do I know this? I'll tell you how I know this now. This is very exciting. We're tracking tortoises with it. Why are you tracking tortoises with it, Gary? Because they're quite easy to find when they run away. It's not
Doppler shifter problem with tortoises, as you approach the blue shift.
yes. The main problem is they can't get it. They want it desperately. Yeah. So no. It uses it now. Time of flight, angle of flight. So is that using? Are you using LoRa, Rybat, or are you using just like VHF frequencies with a beacon? I'll see what he says in the comments, because we also do that as well. So there's clever stuff out there. You just got to pay for it, and it's all of the stuff. And the reason that it's interesting when you're tracking animals is a GPS takes up quite a lot of overhead for power when you switch it on and wait for a fix and then switch it off again, because obviously you want you're only allowed to have a collar's only allowed to be a percentage weight of the animal. and if most of it's battery to keep it running for a year or whatever, then anyway, yeah, that's what that's all about. So it is very interesting. You just need a heck of a lot of receiving stations, which only tend to be in a Raspberry Pi with an SDR or another LoRa setup. Yeah, cognitive. Yeah, I'm going to have to look over it more, but it's Bruce's opinion that's wanted. How are we going to get rid of GPS generally then?
But being on the merchant marine a few years back, we had this system of beacons, and when the GPS constellations came up, was an improvement over the beacon system that was used to determine positions. So aren't we going back to something that was deprecated for a superior system? Shouldn't we be looking at better ways of integration with GPS and also enabling GPS indoors in some way, shape, or form?
But vision-based systems have got to be one way of doing it. Almost an INS.
That brings us to Skydio.
Yeah, all the way back around to Skydio. You're right, but it's like the radio can get near 10 millimeter resolution. Yeah, and it is. Well, what would you?
No, but
would you want to use it for a drone indoors? Because indoors is a problem with radio because it bounces around all over the place.
And there's also a bigger problem, which is a consistent time base between all the systems, which can be a real pain. And at Autopilot, our good friend Peter Barker is fighting over this exact problem of having a consistent time base within Autopilot, so that could be used for, amongst other things, accurate positioning and integration with other systems. But that's a big problem that we have on these chipboards. And if you look at Autopilot and the way, I'm not even going to speak about Betaflight and such, but if you look at Autopilot and the integration it can perform with external systems these days, what we are missing, and that's why Peter is fighting so hard on this time constant, is a really good time-based system, and you can depend on, at a certain extent, on external systems like GPS, but then you have to count the ticks very precisely.
Yeah, well, it is all these it is all timing based, isn't it? All these things are robots saying white space frequencies 400 to 700 megs, and that's that other sort of, and that's what's being grabbed back from television. It wasn't white space before, it was television before, and that sort of thing is some of the useful spectrum that is being sold off, for whatever, for this sort of thing. And we still haven't got our protected radio frequencies. We're worrying about UTNs, we're worrying about electronic ID, and we don't have no protected radio for ourselves.
No, we just keep jumping around on 2.4 gigahertz. Everything now speaks 2.4, so why not something else more?
Well, I'll let Bruce answer that.
It's interesting, isn't it? With the French and their Wi-Fi transponder, you're going to have a drone which has probably got a 2.4 gigahertz receiver sitting there and a Wi-Fi transmitter right next to it, broadcasting the ID. That'll be an interesting situation. I'll be interested to see how that works for them. But we don't have what we do. I haven't looked at, I must make a note now. I'll look for that allocation of spectrum which was given to us, or given to the industry. It's certainly less than the country I was reading. But we do need to do that. And it's interesting because we're dealing with primarily line of sight, we could actually have a very high frequency, way up in the multiple gigahertz band, where there's still some space available, mainly because those signals don't propagate very far without the use of a lot of power and highly directional antennas. So there's nothing actually practically stopping anyone from doing that, except that when that allocation is made, the equipment to use it will be incredibly expensive until we get the economies of scale that we see with 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency stuff and so forth. But I think, again, with all this talk about the dangers, the risks of drones, and the most critical aspects are just being ignored. Like, we need a reliable, robust C2 link. And the regulators, no, we're not concerned about that. We're worried about people, flying over someone's backyard. No, obviously
Why do you care with the C2 link? Drones are going to be autonomous. My company operates autonomous vehicles. Every time I have to fill up a form asking for a permission to fly, it asks for the pilot's name, and I bet I swear that next time I'll have to fill up one. I'll just say Joe Robot as the name of the pilot.
But the problem is with autonomous drones, cyclists wheeling their bikes across freeways will be endangered. We've proven that with the cars. I mean, we're a long way from true autonomy yet. True autonomy relies on people creating flight plans and filing them and taking into account the major risks like contour and things. I think true autonomy is a wee way off. And of course, if you can't trust people to control a drone, how can you trust a computer? Because with deep learning AI things, we know they do stuff, but we don't know how it happens. It's like too many unknown variables.
Just have some blockchain and Bitcoin on that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We were missing the keywords, but Bruce started the keywords.
The keywords.
One thing I was going to raise, the new Oculus virtual reality headset thing. I wonder how that's going to. I wonder if it's possible to use that for drone use. It looks very good and high resolution. I wonder at $199, would that be a good tool for people who are flying drones? I wonder. Might get one.
I think
for the price it is.
I also want one. I'm definitely in that queue as well. And I don't know if you've seen the flight sims running on it now. People make all these big elaborate cockpits and all this sort of thing, and they sit in them in their living room. Well, of course, you can jump in whatever airplane you want. My only downside with them is I think I prefer the HoloLens if it wasn't so expensive, just because I'm not sure about detaching yourself from the rest of the world. It's a little bit from why the reason you have a spotter for FPV here is, of course, it's to comply with the law. That's why you do it. That's why you have a spotter. But actually, it's because it's just not safe to go. You can't go off and sit on a nice ridge or something and put your FPV gear on, because you don't know who's going to come up and whack you. So that's why you're going to have a spotter here. So I think you're a bit Billy No Mates when you put that gear on, but what the hey, it gets the family out your hair, doesn't it? I think it'd be amazing, and I think from a ground control station point of view, you could, the possibilities are limitless. You could have all sorts of things, all sorts of displays all around you. You could have your your ADS-B traffic and everything superimposed on it. You could have a huge sky for $199, or a huge, you could put one system over here, one system over there.
Have you seen if it doesn't require the super duper computer like
that's a snag, isn't it? That is a snag. But as we know, just wait 5 years or 2 years, and technology will solve that part of the problem. That'll get cheaper in 10 minutes.
Raspberry 6. Yeah, that'll do it.
Raspberry 6, yeah. I don't know. I think, I certainly don't have a computer that could run it. That's why I'm not buying one. But yeah, they must come. That's got to be part of our thinking, isn't it? For how ground control stations will be in 10 years' time, instead of having all that glass. You see those people with the vans, don't you, with stuff everywhere? Well, you get rid of all of that, wouldn't you, in one easy go? And then you've got redundancy, because they're $199. You have two, and if this one fails, you pick up this one and put it on. No, Louis not liking this. He's not liking this idea at all.
It's no. I like the Epson Moverio type thing, where you don't get vision block.
Yeah.
Although it really is a use case for deep immersion. Yes, those are the way to go, and that's the thrill and the rush of adrenaline that FPV racing wants and likes. So it's a very niche market. For general usage, And you can see for the applications that some of those mixed reality or superimposed reality have been giving us. For instance, the one good example of one of the solutions was to have a plane mechanic operating and doing the maintenance on a plane, and having the manual being superimposed and guiding the mechanic on do this, do that, do this, do that. And that does not go with full immersion, goes with augmented reality.
Yeah, it's definitely got a place. It's definitely got a place. And I want one. And I'll pretend to the wife that it's because I'm doing research and I'll need it for the industry moving forward. That's what I'll pretend anyway.
You just say that there are some special kind of reading glasses that you don't need real glasses to use.
Don't. She's banging on about me getting reading glasses all the time now. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I'm in a deal of trouble about that sort of thing. But
yeah, reading glasses.
It's a deal of trouble. I'm looking for. Sorry.
And even this week, last week I was on fields, and there's on the top of the wind turbine generator, there's a number, and I could easily see the number on the top of the wind turbine generator at 100 meters away, and the guy from the owner had to reach out for binoculars to see it. But when I was going to input that number on the computer, I had to reach out for my reading glasses.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well, and that also raises the general aviation pilots' fitness to fly and all that sort of thing. But anyway, that's another story altogether. I should have got it teed up and got it ready, but there was a UK safety bulletin today, and in it where it's a chirp. In fact, that's all I need to do. I'll just type in chirp. But a pilot mentions that there's an awful lot in the flight planning. There is. I'm going to put a link to this when I've let it up in the browser. In the flight planning stage, just chat amongst yourselves while I open up this link. I'm going to put it in the.
By the way, Bruce, about the drones crashing on planes and something related. Have you guys last week discussed that issue of the motor exploding on that plane on US?
Yeah, that was. There's been a number of uncontained.
No.
Engine
The one that the motor that exploded mid-flight and the passenger was sucked
out. Uncontained engine failures. The Air New Zealand flight had one too, but fortunately the bits missed the person inside or the people inside. But aviation's dangerous.
Yeah, but didn't I thought it strange that no one mentioned a drone on that incident.
The drone would have been destroyed. The one that caused that crash would have been destroyed.
Yeah. So the point, CHIRP is confidential human incident reporting, something beginning with P, program, I think. And it says proliferation of NOTAM obstruction information. And it's in the link that's on the live chat. And it says report helicopter task, 5 passengers, London, Blackpool and return. Plotted route onto Sky Demon for weather, NOTAMs as per company SOPs. NOTAMs contain the following: 31 kite and balloon warnings, 27 UAS warnings, and 110 obstacle warnings, allowing approximately 1.5 minutes per lat long plotting. I estimate it would take 4.2 hours to plot this amount of information on the requisite charts. And so where I wanted to take that, and I didn't mention this before, I should have done to you guys, it's interesting how electronic devices are already part of this guy's life. And if get GA above 2K, if most GA pilots, so this is a commercial pilot and he's thinking about it, they're not paying this much attention. And that's why we've got to get them above 2K. But it's showing that you you need electronic. You're almost needing electronic devices now to get your flight planning done as a manned pilot. It says obstruction notations can be better listed, organised by risk level, i.e. highest proximity route, given the most priority. And that, it's a pity we haven't got Richard here, that would then feed exactly into Altitude Angel and their sort of vision of revealing stuff, only the stuff that you need as you go along down your route. Well, I thought that was very interesting, but there are 27 UAS warnings on a route from London to Blackpool. That's interesting in itself.
Kites, are they like a warning? Do they have a warning for kites? How do they know that kids are out in the park with these things?
Well, that's probably a kite flying demonstration show, something like that.
It could be some people from the Gaza. Did you see that they had what they call incendiary kites are being used in the Gaza? So I think now with this being used for obviously military purposes and very dangerous things, we will see a raft of new kite regulations sweeping the world.
I wonder.
You guys know that last year we had some crazy huge forest fires, and one of the ways that those fires were started was with some small parachutes with a candle below it.
Oh yes, those balloons.
And that's dangerous too. So
yeah, exactly. People have said that with my balloon project I should use a hot air balloon, but no, way too dangerous. In fact, I've made a rubbish bag hot air balloon yesterday. Went really well, big 240-litre thin plastic bag, tied it up, black one, put it in the sun, woohoo! But I couldn't. It was very little lift. But yeah, I'm amazed those things are legal, because you see them all over the place. These little Chinese lantern things, and they're a huge fire risk, but they're not regulated.
Yep.
I think they are in the UK, and the reason they are is because they're carrying that live flame. I think that's what brings them into the regulation, is the live flame. And I know that that farmers hate them, especially at harvest time, because they're everywhere. And it was something that you never used to see. And then when I was still flying hot air balloons in the UK, after a really nice Saturday night when the weather had been nice, you flew on the Sunday and you'd see them all over the place in fields, absolutely all over the place. So yeah, they are both delightful and yet very dangerous at the same time. Very pretty to see, but yeah.
Did you guys spoke about the new kind of record of simultaneous swarm flying of drones?
That set 2 records, didn't it? That set the largest swarm and then the biggest RC crash in history.
Yeah, I believe so. So. Anyone have you managed to know more about how it was done, Gary? No press releases your way?
No, not well. I find them a bit boring, really. So I don't bother covering them.
It wasn't much of an increase over the Intel one, was it? It was only 100 or something more than the previous record. It wasn't like massive, but it was an epic fail.
It was very good, and I love the way they fell down in sort of like a nice order as well, like dominoes falling. It would have been, it would have been less spectacular if they just all went down together, but they all fell down. And above and beyond, lots of GA information of pilots look at while flying, and checking instruments. That's right. So if they get above 2,000 feet, they'll have a lot more distance between, and only on a nice day, no clouds below 3,000 feet. Only here to help them, only here for their safety.
Will their instruments still work at that altitude? Because with the thin air, blowing on a saxophone, you won't get as much noise.
I'm not sure. When did the saxophone become part of the mandatory equipment? Maybe
only for instrument-rated flight. Yeah.
Yes, I see what you did there. It took me a while, didn't it? A very long time. Yeah, no, that was. I thought that there was EHang, and they definitely are playing a game of cat and mouse with Intel on the maximum size of formations, and it is very, very clever. I'm surprised we're not seeing more examples, because I've always imagined a box of 6 little things, little 175s, 185s, whatever, in a box, each of them capable of 10 minutes flight. So that little box of 6 would give you an hour's flight, and then you go off and do you know, 10 minutes each, go off and do a bit of a building each and come back and give you the data. That's what I've always
That's
imagined.
restricted technology. That's military technology. There's restrictions against swarm technology, isn't there? In the USA, anyway.
Well, the restriction is but Intel seemed to have got around it. It always was one operator, one aircraft. But obviously, Intel has dropped the correct amount of cash to the right. Oh, how dare I say that sort of thing?
The Intel chips are Mr. Joe Robot 1, Joe Robot 2, Joe Robot 1100. So
I mean,
they have personalities.
But well, AI, got to get AI in there. But imagine the amount of work that those 1,000 things could do, rather than saying "Welcome to our show" or whatever in the sky. Imagine if they went off and did some work; they would be fantastic. But I suppose that would be way more complicated actually than actually just creating something in the sky. Everyone avoiding each other, going around a building.
Yes, it is. I cannot expand too much on that, but yes, it's not that easy. I wish it was.
Brings us again back round to that Skydio thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's one of their videos where they show 3 drones flying, but they're not aware, from what we can see from their video, they're not aware of the other's presence unless they are recorded, they're seen by the other drone, so they are not coordinated. But it's just a small, very small step to have them being coordinated. It's just a matter of just adding another function to the codes, so that then you could have them coordinated and operating together and establishing their positions automatically. So if you say place it one at 1 meter to the other, they would be smart enough to position themselves at 1 meter one from the other.
They've probably got 3 pregnant women working on that already.
I don't know. I don't know. I think the minimum is 9 pregnant women, Bruce. It's the bare minimum.
But then for 9 months, you can do 1 baby a month. You know, it's all timing. You mentioned timing earlier with time of flight and GPS, and that's also all timing.
No, the customer has only paid for 1 baby.
Okay. Well, no, but then your problem is you need to find another 8 customers, and then you're fine, and you've got that's your problem. You need more customers.
Yeah, that does not work like that. But okay. The mythical man month is the mythical man month, like Bruce said. It is a big problem. But no, let's see. I'm hopeful that the example of these guys might be good enough to have some good developments, especially on the swarming side, because swarming has some real possibilities and applications for good. And let's see if we can pick up that opportunity.
Good old Chris down in Bruce's Wood of the Neck, iForce 2D. He's done some great work with the Chirios ports of Ardu plane. I don't know if you've seen his videos.
Yeah, I've seen. Basically, he's doing a great job. So whenever he's on Bruce's radar, please thank him on the part of Ardu Pilot, because he's being very helpful. And that was one of the purposes of porting, having Ardu Pilot running on those cheap boards. So we expanded the limit not only for very expensive boards or affordable boards, but to very cheap boards. And those very cheap boards have limitations, yeah, sure, but they can operate the general flight stack, and that's good.
It's very good, and I have been throwing around, and probably incorrectly, but I think on a Pixhawk, well, you might not know the answer to this, but I think somebody told me that on a Pixhawk 1, that Chirios port is making it at least 4 times faster than it was.
I wouldn't say 4 times faster, but it might enable us, for instance, on Copter, do raise the cycle of the code from 400 hertz to 1200 hertz cycle. That might be good for some applications. So I wouldn't go so far as saying as 4 times faster,
okay,
but more efficient and smaller. And as we know, we have been having feature after feature after feature on the entire autopilot stack, and there was a problem with the STM32 chips on the first generation that have a crazy limit of 1 megabyte, and we still have been able to make it operate with the GBOs, while on the NUTX version we were constantly hitting the ceiling of 1 megabyte. So we have a better, more efficient code running on the STM32 family. That's why those small F4 and shortly F7 boards are being used for autopilot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying to Bruce, we were just sort of sending a thanks out to Chris there, iForce 2Ds, and some great work on stuff. Now, you mentioned your balloon just now, Bruce. Are we going to see that one? Intrigued to see your hot air balloon attempt.
Oh, I didn't actually video that because I didn't want to incriminate myself, littering the countryside with large rubbish bags. But interestingly, I found some compostable rubbish bags, which is kind of, because a lot of people have complained about the environmental impact of all these balloons littering the countryside. And I suspect many of them sent messages whilst flying to another environmental conference in a large wide-body jet. But they have a point, you don't want to litter the countryside. So I found some that will compost. So in theory, when they fall on the ground and lay there and the sun hits them and the worms eat them, they'll be gone forever. They won't be a risk to the environment. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now, but heavier than the regular bags. But I have also gone from 50 litres to 240 litres because I was rapidly running into the maximum lift capacity with my payload. A few of the options I've tried haven't worked. So I am going to use a more simple power system for the payload, which makes it heavier. So I thought, 240 litres, I don't have to fill it with hydrogen, just enough to give me lift, gives me more headroom. And as the balloon goes up, of course, there will be room for the hydrogen to expand. So when we reach the troposphere, we won't be bursting. Optimism rules supreme here.
Yes. Just leave the mouth open. Leave the mouth open, and it'll vent and it'll come down.
Yeah,
the floaty stuff goes up.
Yeah, but you've got Brownian motion and gas diffusion, which means it's still going to leak a bit out. You know, hydrogen, it won't necessarily stick to the top. You know, you put a drop of ink into a milk bottle and eventually it all goes blue. You get Brownian motion, disrupts the thing. The reason that you're not wading through a sea of xenon and argon at your feet is because gas tends to mix.
Yes. No. I hear that. It's just that whole bursting thing can be an issue. Perhaps it's more of a worry when you're manned than when you're unmanned.
I would think so.
Yes, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. And you've probably done your electronics and ready to go, so you know what your payload is and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's lots of little tricky things like how do you stop the payload from spinning and moving all over the place. So it is actually a piece of aerodynamics as well as a piece of camera work. I've had to build stuff to hopefully make it relatively stable because you're ascending. There's no crosswinds because you're moving with the wind, but as you ascend, you've got the turbulent wake of the balloon coming down, or effectively you're moving up into that turbulent wake. So the payload is going to be disturbed. So it's a tricky job trying to make sure that it's stable enough to be useful.
Come on, some piece of wire instead of ribbon, and I don't know, some more static solution of hanging the payload from the balloon.
It's all weight, isn't it? It's all weight.
Yeah, it's to the weight. Longer string helps, but then you still got, the fact is that the airspace is not perfectly calm. Even in a calm day, there's a certain amount of turbulence you're going to get swing around. And so, yeah, it is. I'm going to do a few tests and so forth, which I may not film, but ultimately I'm hoping to get the final video out this week because next week it's supposed to rain all week and you don't get such good pictures when you're in the cloud.
Come on, Bruce, the rain should not stop you. I'm sure that you want to go higher than the clouds.
You've got to get through.
The trouble is, Yeah,
get
and
through.
5.8 gigahertz video gets really soaked up quite quickly by cloud. It's very high frequency, and the moisture has an incredible effect on the path loss. So I remember flying an FPV model. I'm sorry, I remember someone telling me they were flying an FPV model once beyond visual line of sight, and it went into cloud, and the video signal almost instantly disappeared. So they had to flip return to home to get it. So I was told.
Nothing to see here, Mrs. Mayor. Nothing to see here, Mrs. Mayor.
And the weight of the balloon will go through the roof as well when you go through that. That's a good ballooning training trick, which of course a manned balloon would never do this. And much like your FPV story, I've also heard that apparently what you might do with a student is you might go above the cloud, where you then start getting solar gain and life is good and you don't have to do much, and then set the thing up in a cold descent, and then when you go through the cloud, apparently you actually can watch the rate of descent decrease as things get all a bit, denser in the cloud. But when you come out the bottom of the cloud, again, allegedly, the rate of descent just falls. It's like it just falls away. So if someone was to do that, they would make sure they took very good cognizance of the level at which they went through the base of that cloud and ensured there was enough ground or sky rather between. Because you might end up with you might be trolleying down at 600 feet a minute in the cloud, and the second you fall out the bottom, you're instantly at 1,000 feet a minute. So best you're more than a minute away from hitting the ground. But apparently, so yeah, the density.
People do some crazy things, don't they? Gosh.
Apparently so, yes. But I can't imagine but solar gain, if you're in a dark coloured balloon, it can be a real problem if you're in a blackish. And we sent a guy solo once, and he did go off and do that, and he ended up because he was so lightweight, he was in a 5-person balloon, just because he happened to be. He couldn't get back down through the cloud, and then when he did get back down through the cloud, he had to describe to us what he could see over wireless. We had to work out where on earth he was. Apparently, allegedly, that happened in the 80s.
It's probably some movie you saw somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. It was on YouTube. It must have been on YouTube. That's what it was. Was it YouTube
at the time, or was your tube at the time?
It was barely in the internet. It would have been about when would that have been? About 1991, 1992, something like that. So a long time ago. Anyway, look, we've gone 7 minutes past the hour. Did you guys see anything else you wanted to chat about before we disappear off for this week?
Yeah, just urge people to go out and try the new rover release by Ardo Pilot. Ardo Rover came up with a new version with a series of improvements for vector thrusts, and also reminding people to test something that we already briefly spoke here about, the new builds of Ardo Pilot for copter and plane based on the GBO's operating system, which are considerably more efficient, and we've been having some great results with that. So please do, and report back with the logs to the ardopilot.org forum.
And eventually that'll just be a thing that's there for everybody. You won't actually know, because the firmware will be built that way.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you won't know that you're running it, but things should run better. In the comments, Poan V, why not have 2 balloons, one static at cloud level, receiving and retransmitting signals? Yes, you can do it. You can also go up on a hill. But to break through cloud, weirdly, even with a toy balloon, is harder because they just end up weighing so much more when they go through the cloud. It's a lot harder. It's not. Then you've got to have a lot of excess lift, and then his bin bag is going to burst over the mayor's house. Imagine the catastrophe and calamity that would ensue if that occurred. They won't do you for littering if you fly that. Are you sure they won't?
No, they've got to find the bag first, and I've written the mayor's name on it, so she'll get done.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, that's it. Well, thanks very much, chaps. Thanks very much for taking the time to have this nonsense chat. And dear viewer, thank you very much. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about, or anybody you'd like us to try and drag on here, then just please email me, Gary@susnews.com, or drop a comment in there, and we'll do our very best to do that.
Barry,
And
did you get a reply from Incredible Skies? Are they coming back on?
Incredible Skies, that's the people north of you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, they've got a couple of things to sort out, and yes, they're going to come back. That's the test range in the pointy out finger bit, isn't it, of the top of New Zealand?
That's what we call it around here. Yes.
Is it? Is a pointy out finger bit? And how? I was just wondering how exactly you would. Is it this? Anyway, how you would do that? Like that. There you go. What is that peninsula? Is the Coromandel the other one then?
Yeah, Coromandel is on the right-hand side, and the others are on the left-hand side. Yeah.
Because in all the buy a house in New Zealand and do places up TV programs we watch here, they always go to the Coromandel, and it looks very, very, very nice indeed.
Well, it's hippie town, really. There's a lot of people, getting back to nature, going off grid, and becoming one with nature, which is like not really being composted, but that's the alternative lifestyle area.
We've a bit off topic, but if you're considering moving to South Africa, we've just had a directive that if you have any form of generator at home, solar panel, anything of any kilowatt hours, you now have to register it, and there's perhaps going to be a solar tax here. So going off the grid here is going to be very, very expensive soon.
That includes the bicycle dynamos that we used to have. So when you were pedaling, the lights were on.
I don't think you have those anymore.
I've got a solar powered calculator. Am I breaking the law if I can't bring it into South Africa without paying?
I think it must be stuff connected to your house for the electrification of your house. I should have said it a bit more. But that's causing a bit of a storm. So becoming a hippie is becoming a bit regulated here. That's not good, is it? Can't have regulated hippies. So that's on that bombshell, I suppose. As I go into rant mode, I should say, don't regulate the hippies, and remember, no GA below 2K. That's not taking off, pun intended there, as a thing. But try. Look forward to your videos, Bruce. Look forward to speaking to you again, Louis. Dear viewer, thank you very much. Send us anything in you want us to do, and we'll try and do it. Look after yourselves. Have a safe week, and we'll see you again 2100 GMT next week. Bye-bye.